A couple of Hollywood heavyweights are locked in a takeover battle for Warner Brothers. It's the studio behind everything from Game of Thrones to Casablanca. But Warner isn't the only one being caught in the middle.
No matter who wins it, it's going to change the future of moviegoing because we are going to have less wide release product, which means less foot traffic. I think you're going to see 1,000 or so screens maybe close in the US.
So will movie lovers regret this deal? Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. And well, you know the rest. Hi, I'm Paul Havershood. Welcome to The Cost of Living. Netflix or Paramount buying Warner Brothers could be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. But entertainment industry analyst Brandon Katz says we've seen this movie before, and it doesn't have a happy ending. Later in the show, a mega Hollywood takeover battle and what it could mean for all of us. Also today, 'tis the season for holiday baking, and some Canadians, for their most special treats, will go to great lengths to find French butter and shell out beaucoup francs for it. But why? Up first, how much would you give to skip to the front of the line? Well, that's something more places are now selling, but not for cheap. When you think about the idea of first class, it's often an airplane thing. The people up front get more legroom, better food.
I'd love to kind of curl up into one of those little pods.
Those pods look sweet. International flight? Absolutely. But you know what, Leah Hendry? You're paying for that.
Yeah, and now that idea of a VIP class, it's spreading to other places, to concerts, vacation resorts, Disneyland.
Disneyland. So like Mickey is behind a velvet rope?
Kind of. Disney now has this thing. For an extra $400, you can now cut to the front of the line.
$400 on top of the hundreds you're already paying.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be that everyone paid the same price and got the same experience. You'd all wait in line, broiling in the hot sun. But now we're seeing this kind of VIP-ification show up in more places, not just Disney, like here, closer to home. It's happening at Canadian ski hills. 2 resorts, Blue Mountain in Ontario and Mont Tremblant in Quebec, they've introduced a VIP pass this year. For an extra $2,000, you can cut the line and get onto the chairlift before everyone else.
So just to be clear, you ski down the run, you get to the chairlift, you don't wait in line, you get your own line, and then you just jump on the chair and off you go.
Yeah, and you also get primo parking and a VIP lounge where you can hang out with the other VIPs and sip free hot chocolate.
Okay, if you want to pay for that kind of stuff, I kind of get that. But this lift line thing, kind of stuck on it. Because if I'm already paying a lot for my lift ticket and then someone jumps the line in front of me, I don't love that.
I mean, I grew up skiing at Sunshine. I know how it feels to wait in that lift line, and so do my frozen toes.
Well, yeah, sure, but your toes, you, the person next to you, it could be Bill Gates, you're all cold together.
I mean, right? That's always kind of been the vibe on ski hills. For someone like Vela Vardy, that's part of its appeal. Blue Mountain is his hometown mountain. His kids and his grandkids, they learned to ski there, and he's skied at the resort for more than 50 years.
I live within walking distance to the resort. I had the luxury of skiing for about an hour and a half every morning before I went to work for 25 years. So it was nice. Yeah.
Nice. How do I get Vel's life?
I know, me too. I mean, Blue Mountain holds a special place in his heart. So when he saw they were offering the VIP pass, it didn't sit right with him. He doesn't like the idea of having a 2-tier system.
If I were to ski right now on a Saturday, on a busy Saturday, and I watched the 1%ers fly by me, I'd be a little bit annoyed. I'd have to say that.
I think Vel and I are aligned on some things.
He loves skiing, and he wants his family to love skiing. So he isn't thrilled about where this is headed.
My grandkids, who are, 20 odd years old now, they would have something to say, saying, holy crap, it's hard enough for us to buy homes, hard enough to buy cars and insurance. And now we go up skiing and, they want an extra $2,000, just, anyway.
Okay, so he doesn't like it. He doesn't think his grandkids are going to like it. What about other people?
There's actually been a lot of outcry about this. The VIP ski pass has been tried in the US, and there's been a lot of backlash. The company that owns Blue Mountain, they own a bunch of ski resorts there too. And there's a petition going around at the one near Seattle. Nearly 5,000 people have signed it, and they're hoping to block this VIP thing. But the company that owns all these resorts is still moving ahead with it.
Okay, but if people don't like it, at least, some people, why is it worth it for the resort owners to potentially alienate those customers?
It's about money. There's a lot of demand for what Blue Mountain is selling. There's about 5 million people within driving distance of the resort. To take advantage of that, they're segmenting the market.
So they're splitting up their customer base, which is something that companies can do now because they know a lot about us. They can mine our personal data. They know who we are, what we're about, and, what we could be willing to pay.
And that allows them to divide customers into these smaller, distinct groups. Tirthadar teaches marketing at the University of Guelph. Micro-targeting allows companies to kind of tailor experiences to people who can pay more. And he says this kind of price discrimination is very profitable.
Because your product is not changing. It's the same ski slope. You're just basically saying, look, I'm going to put you in front of the line and charge you $1,000 more or $10,000 more.
So they're trying to milk as much as they can out of their one asset, the hill. But are enough people willing to pay thousands of dollars more for this?
The number of people that are willing to pay VIP prices is just a sliver of the market, but it's enough to make it worth it. Tirtha says we're seeing this growing gap between, people at the top and everyone else. The middle class's buying power just doesn't have the same sway that it used to have.
In the past, let's say the middle class segment of the market, they sort of ruled the market. So they were the largest segment of the market. Now we are in a situation where, the willingness to pay for this premium by this 1 or 2% is so high that, any loss of the market share or profitability from the middle class or the lower segment of the market can be compensated.
So they're going where the money is, and if they lose some customers along the way, well, then so be it.
It's a risk they're willing to take. Sure, the ski resorts don't know how it will work out. But if we go back to that Disney example, it's not second-guessing this. Since it introduced the Lightning Lane Pass, that's the one that lets you jump in front of the line, it's raked in more than $500 million for the company.
Okay, so that's the financial part of this. But what about let's call it the fairness part?
Yeah, Liane Son-Hing says, a lot of people see this as fundamentally unfair. She's a psychologist at the University of Guelph who studies inequality.
So I often think about resorts and the feeling that I get when I walk by a section that is the VIP and, like how nice the chairs are and the chaises. And it always creates a sense of jealousy, right? And I'm sure for the haves that it creates a sense of elitism and belonging to a special group. But for everybody else who doesn't fit into that top tier, you're comparing yourself upward.
Liane says this kind of comparison can, put a lot of pressure on people to spend money that they just don't have.
It's what people refer to this as status competition, right? And so when there's more inequality, there's a stronger sense of needing to keep up with the Joneses.
And that, keeping up with the Joneses, it may push people to spend more money next time so they can have that experience as well.
Well, they might decide to do that, or maybe they'll decide, hey, I'm just not going to pay.
That's a possibility, but Liane says people also have a way of adapting. We can just kind of get used to these things. Take a look at airlines. People don't like paying for upgrades from seats to Wi-Fi to meals, but it hasn't stopped them from flying.
Well, sure, but skiing, going to Disneyland, these things are arguably more optional than, say, air travel. And people can choose to spend their entertainment dollar on anything they want. So I do wonder how this VIP-ification is going to play out for some of these companies in the long run.
It might depend how many people are like Velavardi, the skier from Blue Mountain. He longs for the old days when Blue Mountain wasn't part of a giant company. It was a family-run operation. And for them, running a ski hill?
It meant giving the maximum good experience possible to the people that came, whether it be 100 or whether it be 100,000. It didn't matter. Everybody should be treated well.
Okay, so what's Vel going to do this year? Because it's ski season.
Well, he's going to keep skiing, but it won't be at Blue Mountain. He doubts the company that runs it will miss locals like him.
Are we important enough? Do the $2,000 jump in front of the line fees pay for me? Maybe they do. And if they do, God bless them. But I'm not going there.
All right, well, if Vel wants to come out west, we'll make some turns.
You're going to invite him out to Castle or Sunshine, maybe?
Castle, definitely Castle. Thanks, Leah.
Thanks, Paul.
When you think imported luxury, what pops into your head? A Rolex? Maybe a Ferrari? Well, Daniel Nerman, in a story we like so much we're playing again, finds some Canadians are splashing out for something rich, silky, and French. And if you're thinking a scarf from Hermes, that's not it.
When Yusuf Treya is feeling really decadent, he cuts himself a slice of brie and slathers it with butter. Not just any butter, French butter.
When you eat it, it's like you're eating whipped cream almost.
Yusuf owns a small grocery store in Calgary called Bridgeland Market. He carries a lot of local stuff like produce and meat, but leading up to the holidays, when it's time for Christmas baking, Yusuf brings in 5-kilo buckets of French butter and sells them for $350.
The importation tax is something like 200%. It's astronomical, right?
The tariff on foreign butter is actually 298.5%. It's how Canada protects its dairy industry. Yep, that's supply management, folks. Despite the price, Yusuf always sells out of Le Beurre because
You don't make friends with salad. You make friends with fat.
You don't win friends with salad. You don't win friends with salad.
most of the Canadian butter you'll find at grocery stores has 80% milk fat. But the fat content in French butter is even higher, between 82 and 86%. And for bakers, that matters. Because, as the saying goes, cooking is art. Baking is science.
I'm always trying to apply the science I've learned during my studies into my baking.
Saeed Mdahoma has a PhD in neuroscience and teaches pastry classes online. He calls himself the pastry nerd. So, let's get nerdy. If you're making pies or tarts and you use French butter, Saeed says the dough is much easier to work with.
Because it has less water, it's less likely to stick to your rolling pin if you're trying to spread it. The other thing that makes French butter, high-fat butter, really good is how it has a high melting point.
This is important when you're baking pastries like croissants.
You want those croissants to rise, and rising happens at room temperature. Regular butter will tend to melt at room temperature, but high-fat butter will not melt unless it's really, really hot, so it's better to use French butter for that reason.
Now, it's not like there isn't a Canadian version of this magical super high-fat butter. A few dairies do make it, but...
Okay, it hurts me to say that because I'm both French and now I'm Canadian, so I don't want to pick sides, but actually, yeah, French butter is slightly better when it comes to taste.
And it is about a third of the price in France. But if you're thinking of bringing a few blocks back in your luggage, that's a no-no. Last year, travelers faced more than $80,000 in fines for smuggling butter into Canada. French butter can be imported commercially. That's why Yusuf Treya can stock it and has already sold more than 200 kilos. And he does put some aside for himself, but keeps it under lock and key because there was that one year when he forgot to put it away after a big party.
I'm passed out on my couch, and all I hear is this smacking. And there's my cat staring at me with butter all over his face.
Sanford helped himself to about $15 worth of French butter.
He's got that fancy taste. He's highfalutin.
For The Cost of Living, I'm Danielle Nerman.
Let's play a quick game. What do this and this
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
and this
That's all, folks.
all have in common? Well, they're all from Warner Brothers. And now Casablanca, Harry Potter, The Sopranos, the rest of HBO's prestige TV could all soon be sold to the highest bidder. Netflix and Paramount are in a $100 billion battle for Warner. If regulators let it happen, the big five Hollywood movie makers would shrink to 4. But the real competition here could be for more than just a studio. Who wins could shape how, where, and what we watch for years to come. Brandon Katz is an analyst for the entertainment industry. He's with Greenlight Analytics in New York. Brandon, hi.
So glad to be here and loving these sound effects. I'm feeling like I'm in the heyday, the golden age of radio.
Well, I hope this can be the beginning of a beautiful friendship, Brandon. But if we start with Netflix, why does Netflix want to buy Warner Brothers?
Simple, one-word answer, franchises. Netflix has been an original content deliverer for about 12 or so years now. And because they don't have a century-long library of intellectual property like a Warner Brothers, like a Paramount, like a Disney, they've had to more or less create new franchises from scratch, as opposed to getting a Warner Brothers studio with Superman, Looney Tunes, Game of Thrones, Friends, Wizarding World of Harry Potter, all of these guaranteed high floor hits. That is the kind of biggest driver in my view. And the second view is growth. This company, according to a Wall Street Journal report from earlier this year, wants to have a $1 trillion market cap by 2030. Where's that avenue for growth, Paul? If it's not going to come from raw subscriptions, it's got to come from a major acquisition that brings in a whole host of new options.
If we think about this from the standpoint of competition, WB has been behind so much stuff that people love, right? It's Casablanca, The West Wing, White Lotus, on and on and on it goes. If it disappears as a competitor, is that going to change what we see, the quality of what we see, the quantity of what we see if there's just one less studio out there competing, making good stuff?
Well, first I'll say that as long as Casey Bloys is running HBO and HBO Max, from a quality standpoint, they're going to be just fine. But if we look historically at pretty much any field, but particularly entertainment media, major consolidation, generally speaking, leads to less competition, which is bad for consumers, bad for talent, and bad for labor. So there's probably going to be layoffs no matter who gets Paramount. There's going to be one less major buyer on the market, which gives them more negotiating power over talent. And it probably is going to be a reduction in volume, like we talked about, both in movies and probably TV shows overall for consumers. So, the track record speaks for itself. I think the healthiest option, and most economists would agree, is that Warner Brothers remains independent, but that's not the world we live in. That is not going to be the case. So we have to deal with what is tangibly in front of us, and that is, what does the world look like post Warner Brothers acquisition?
Well, whoever buys it, do you think they might leave HBO alone? Because I think people listening might be like, hey, just don't mess with my Sunday night TV lineup.
I think the track record of the last 25 years of companies treating Warner Brothers like a hot potato that needs to be passed among one another says it all. And that is, HBO has largely been left to its own devices, no matter who the corporate owner is. And that's because it is arguably the greatest, most profitable small screen creation in history when you combine its critical track record. We have so many more questions right now than answers. But what we do know is that in all likelihood, based on track record and current and projected value, HBO will be just fine to be left as it is.
Are you concerned about the consolidation? Because as the industry becomes as the companies in the industry become bigger and bigger and bigger, again, the history of competition just suggests that they're going to have less and less incentive to compete. And I'm sort of fixated on this idea of what is that going to mean for me who just wants to watch a lot of good stuff made by a lot of cool people.
Yeah, you, me, everybody listening, prepare to have your prices hiked in the very near future. As soon as this deal closes, I would give it, and I've told this to other people, I would give it an 18-month window before prices are hiked once again. I think somebody ran the numbers recently, and Netflix has, on average, hiked prices about 9% every year since 2016, something like that. And that's, not including a major 80 to $100 billion acquisition that would require them to generate an ROI over X amount of years. So all consolidation usually leads to is prices being increased for the every average everyday consumer. So unfortunately, what was once a cheaper alternative to the bloated pay TV bundle has very much become a kind of premium entertainment resource.
Okay, so we might pay more for Netflix, and those prices have been going up. Anyway, if let's just say Netflix wins this deal, it's going to have more stuff to show people at home on their big screen TVs. Do you think this changes the future of moviegoing or the future of theaters at all?
No matter who wins it, it's going to change the future of moviegoing because we are going to have less wide release product, which means less foot traffic. I think you're going to see 1,000 or so screens maybe close in the US. Now that is just shooting from the hip there. I haven't done too much math on that. It's just a general assumption. Already, we've seen pre-pandemic, the U.S. box office hit at least $11 billion in revenue 5 consecutive years, or at least 5 years out of the 2010s. Post-pandemic, we haven't cracked $9 billion. Now, 2026 looks like a pretty hefty year. I think that's probably going to be the year to finally surpass $9 billion again. But we're talking about losing roughly 20-ish% of the U.S. box office industry that has not recovered, and at this point, probably never will. Now, if you remove another major studio that's releasing 12 to 17 theatrical movies a year, roughly over the last decade, that is another big hit. If under potentially Netflix, hypothetically, if Superman and the next Harry Potter movie are only in theaters for 3 weeks, yeah, sure, they make the bulk of their money in that first 2 to 4 week span, but still, you're training audiences to expect major IP, major blockbuster entertainment at home quicker. So at the end of the day, I think you're training audiences to expect movies quicker than ever at home, particularly at this higher tier of blockbuster, a franchise IP. And ultimately, that's going to have an adverse long-term effect on our desire and ability to go to movie theaters.
It feels like there's an inevitability to this, that theaters and the theater business keep shrinking. And, if that's what people want, if that's what the market wants, that just is going to happen. Is that just the world we live in, where we're just kind of in this kind of evolution?
I will say this. I don't think movie theaters will ever go extinct. They have survived literally everything that has been thrown at them. And that includes a Great Depression, that includes a world war, it includes multiple recessions. And still, there has always been a communal desire for experiencing major big screen entertainment on the biggest format possible. And I don't think that's going anywhere. You're still going to have a ton of people that want to see Superman in theaters, that want to see the next Christopher Nolan movie in theaters. And I don't think that's ever going to change. I do think it is contracting. It is shrinking. But one thing that Hollywood has not really taken accountability for, and something that we focus on a lot at Greenlight Analytics, is that there still is a passionate audience there. But Hollywood has a marketing / advertising problem. It doesn't think about micro-targeting and audience segmentation. It still thinks reach and awareness on broad levels is enough to convert into action. And it's just not true these days. Not when we consumers have so many entertainment options at their disposal. Not when, like you said, we can watch amazing things on our big screen pretty quickly after things hit theaters. So they have to give a greater incentive to audiences to come out to theaters. And let's be honest too, if we're taking it a step further, theaters need to acknowledge that prices have skyrocketed, and what was once the most economical night out for a family of four now costs triple digits of US dollars routinely. 4 tickets, popcorn and soda for everyone. So there are a lot of factors contributing to this beyond just consolidation.
Well, finally, Brandon, let's say you could wave a magic wand, you could pick the outcome of this Warner Brothers takeover battle, and you could pick the thing that you think would be best for movie lovers. What would you want to see happen?
Warner Brothers remains independent, and Paul and Brandon are anointed the presidents of Hollywood with big fat checks to accommodate.
I love it. Benevolent movie lover, philosopher kings. Brandon Katz, thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
Brandon Katz is an entertainment industry analyst. He's with Greenlight Analytics in New York. So that's all, folks. But on last week's show, we talked about advent calendars, and we asked you about yours.
Hey, just Taryn from CBC Saskatchewan next door calling to talk about our advent calendar we have for our kids. It started off when my daughter was very little. She is now 13. It carries on with my son, and what it is it's a box. It's an advent calendar, but it has individual boxes. And the elves that come every night and do pranks around the house do everything from leaving candies in it to little notes. And the little notes cover everything from have eggnog with supper tonight, have a candy cane with your breakfast, or at the worst of times, mom and dad do all the dishes, or you get to pick all the music at supper tonight.
I got my husband a fishing advent calendar, so he gets to open up a fishing lure every day of December. It's Fishmas.
I'm calling about my advent calendar. I bought a plain box and made it myself and painted it beautiful. And every box I put a reason I'm grateful. My name is Carol. You can call me Christmas Carol.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Christmas Carol, and everyone else. The Cost of Living is based in Calgary. The show is produced by Danielle Nerman, Leah Hendry, and Jennifer Keane, with help from Jeff Kynock. I'm Paul Havershrud. Thanks for listening.